If you want to get closer to what you truly want, you're in the right place. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, I'm Joanne Victoria, and this is the Sanity Project podcast. The Sanity Project podcast is where you discover a life of clarity, confidence, and success. Our guest today is Barry Collins. Barry Collins is an amazing individual. He's written a book called Face Everything and Roar, and I think that's an amazing title. It's available on amazon.co.uk, and Barry is a Certifying Master Firewalking Instructor, and he provides experimental learning to individuals and groups who are looking to tap into their inner resources and discover the best version of themselves. And I always tell everybody, don't look outside, look inside. And Barry is going to talk about looking inside yourself and talking about fear, because fear is the big thing that holds any one of us back in the moment or in the long haul. Welcome to the show, Barry Collins.
Thank you, Joanne. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm grateful that you're here. It's when I read your name, I said, Barry Collins, such fun. I don't know why. It was just an intuitive hit that you were a fun kind of person. Am I close?
Yes, absolutely. I think fun is a very important element in everybody's life. And we certainly, when we're teaching and when we're sharing the messages that we aim to share with people, we try to make it fun. Because I don't know about you and your listeners, but certainly one of the things that I've found is a common theme is people, if they think back to their early years in school, they always seem to have one teacher that was their favorite, the one that they remembered, and they really enjoyed those classes. And one of the key and common factors in all of those memories is that those teachers gave them a fun experience. It was active, it was involved, and it was fun. And so, the lessons that we share with people, we aim to follow that pattern because it seems to work for people.
Fun is the key, I think. If you don't have any fun, if you're not having any fun, why bother with your life? You have to learn to have a sense of humor and look at things in a different perspective. So, Barry, tell the audience how you came to this place where you are a master firewalking instructor. And I know you started in corporate, but even before that, this is... The audience listens. I sometimes tell them, actually, I always tell them to re-listen to any podcast that I'm recording. And today I'm going to start early because I know Barry has a lot of insights to benefit you listeners about fear, about the inner strength that you have, and how he helps you access that inner strength. So how can you help our listeners deal with the fear? And then first tell us how you got to this place. What were your experiences? What walls did you have to walk into before you got to the place that you knew you needed to take a specific direction?
Sure. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. I started in corporate way back in the day, but before that, I wasn't very academically minded. That wasn't really my bag. I was very much a hands-on doing things, learning things by doing things, and by making mistakes. And that was just me. That was who I was. And then I realized I was going to have to make a living in the real world, and kicking about with friends and cycling and roller skating and climbing up trees and all of that active stuff. It wasn't easy to make a living doing that back when I was younger. So I had to get a real job. And that led me into probably one of the most easily accessed career paths, but one of the most challenging, which was sales.
Oh, yes. Don't we all start in sales when we don't have those alphabets after our name?
Sure. And, the thing is, sales is, I think it's globally, it's the largest career path. I think the closest career path to that is only half the number of people who have stepped into that career. So sales is a huge, a huge world where, there are so many different styles, so many different reasons for being in sales, and so many different products and services. But the one thing that seems to be common is that, in the main, people don't buy products and services. People buy people.
Absolutely.
And what I learned in very early on was that I could learn as much as I wanted about the products or the services and what we were able to offer to our customers, but if they didn't have faith, trust, belief, confidence in me, then it didn't matter how much knowledge I had to be personable. And I spent, I think in total, I was nearly 25 years in sales and corporate and management. And I think 10 years into that, I had been doing the same thing. I'd been improving, year on year, getting better as you do, just with experience. And in the sales arena where I was in, which was, technology, communications, a fast moving, very quickly changing field, there was a lot of regular retraining, and part of that was your sales retraining, which was, at least once a year, if not more often. And after 10, 12 years of doing this, I was turning up to these seminars, knowing that I was turning up so that somebody somewhere could put a tick on a spreadsheet to say, yes, Barry's done his refresher training. Mm-hmm. And in early 2002, 2003, I turned up to yet another one of these refreshers, expecting another day or so of going over what I thought I already knew. And then I was presented with something new, something I hadn't heard before. And it was approaches and ways of talking to customers and ways of talking to your team and ways of building sales. And it was something completely new. And it transpired, what I was hearing from this trainer was my first experience of the field of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP.
Right.
Now, here in the UK, I think he's now become quite popular in the US, but here in the UK, the most prominent delivery that we see is through a chap called Paul McKenna, who was very big here in the UK as a hypnotist, but went on to become a very successful therapist. And much of his work is based in the field of neuro-linguistic programming. I think he now has a show on Hulu in the US as well.
Yeah, I think I've seen him years ago. I think he's also got some videos on YouTube. And I know he had some sort of a show here in the US years ago. And he did the circuit talk shows when they were more popular, et cetera. And I remember him, and he pops up every once in a while. So yes, NLP is really it's impressive.
Yes, it's an incredibly powerful tool. And hypnosis is also an incredibly powerful tool. But when you put the two together, that's when they become, it's greater than the sum of its parts. Mm-hmm. So I experienced NLP and started doing my own research into it. And over the next 4 or 5 years, I realized NLP was like trying to learn to drive a car by reading a book. You can't get the experience of feeling the gear change, of the resistance of the wheels and the rubber on the blacktop. You can't feel that unless you're doing it. And so I looked around to find out where could I get some practical experience, where could I train? And it was at that time that I started developing a habit, which has become both very rewarding but also very expensive, which is that I wanted to get as close to the source of this knowledge, this wisdom as possible. And so I ended up training with Dr. Richard Bandler, who's one of the co-founders of the field of neuro-linguistic programming. So in 2008, I did my practitioner and went back in 2009 and did my master practitioner and became an NLP master practitioner, a therapist, hypnotherapist, and bolted on over the next 3 or 4 years various other skill sets, which all kind of enhanced all of that But originally what had happened was I'd gone into this field for sales, thinking, well, it's going to make me a better salesperson. And what I realized was that within that first 12 to 18 months of getting some real hands-on practical training and experience, that this skill set, this knowledge carried way beyond the field of sales. People could actually have an experience in their life that helps them feel better, live better, and achieve more.
Absolutely, yes. I'm listening to you, and it's like I see the people changing the way they think when you work with them. And I know that that's one of the benefits of NLP and all the other aspects that you just described, because it's you. You have a sense of who people are, and you use you put your tools to work with these people and help them overcome whatever obstacles that are in their way. But it's you who have that sense.
That's it. I would often, slightly jokingly, but also with an undertone of gravity, I would sometimes say to my clients that my belief that they're okay is just so much stronger than their belief that they're not. And that would always be the basis from which I would work. Well,
it sounds like who you truly are. You believe in people because you first started by believing in yourself.
Yes.
And knowing that the sales in and of itself, before you experienced NLP, et cetera, was insufficient to who you are and what you can contribute to the planet. I'm just reframing your life, Barry. What can I tell you?
I'm taking notes just in case anyone asks me what I've been doing for the last 25 years. I can now give it to them in an elevator pitch. But so I spent 5 years building the sales, but outside of the corporate environment, I was also building a practice. I was working with people who had self-image issues, who had weight issues, who had phobias, who had anxiety, who had stress, who were having panic attacks, who were having PTSD. So I was working with people who had all these conditions, and for a token sum, I was helping them to change their lives. And what I realized over those 5 years was this ignites me. This is lit a spark in me that it makes, hitting the sales targets and filling in the spreadsheets and seeing the numbers seem unimportant, insignificant, and no longer enough. And so at that point, I kind of had a sense that there was more to life than I had and that I was getting. And I suppose I did some soul searching and realized that if I wanted more, I had to put more in to get more out. And I thought, this is where the fear element really began to show up for me, because I thought, well, I live a normal life. I've got the bills, I've got the car, I've got the food and the groceries and the petrol, and I've got the mortgage, and I've got the kids, and I've got grandkids now, and all of those, and I've got, a wife who thankfully is very understanding and very supportive, because, we have all these financial burdens. And I was very fortunate. I was put in a position where I was possibly able to be made redundant from the corporate role that I'd been in for 25 years. And so I talked over with my wife, and thankfully she supported me when I said, I've got this great idea. I want to walk away from all that security and comfort and knowing what next week and next month and next year is going to look like, and step into a life where I don't know what's going to happen.
You took the risk. You jumped off the ledge.
Oh boy, did I ever. So,
I'm sure our listeners are going, yay, me, I did that too, Barry.
Yeah. And, the thing is, when I talk to people about this, there are so many people that kind of go, yeah, me too. And there's also a group of people who go, oh, I so wish I could do that. And this is kind of the message, is that you can. It just takes a little bit of reframing of the where you're at and what you're sacrificing and what you're gaining, and all of that just needs to be put in a different light. And so what I looked at was, what was bringing me joy? What, sure, the holidays and having the nice car and all of that was nice, but it didn't bring me joy. When I saw the lights go on in someone's eyes, when they got over in 30 minutes a phobia that they'd been carrying for 20 years. That was powerful, and I wanted more of that. And I then spent the next 3 or 4 years getting into some serious training and really involving myself in the personal development field. I built up a successful practice. By this time, my wife had seen what I was doing, because she was in sales as well. That was how we'd originally met. And she'd seen what I was doing, and she went, "Oh, hold on, this is exciting. I want a piece of this." And so she started training in NLP and hypnosis. And so, we started in this practice together, and we became heavily involved in the personal development field, working with, some big coaches here in the UK. So it was life coaching and hypnotherapy and NLP and all the other disciplines that are kind of tagged on to those. And moving in those fields, we'd come across a friend who had done, it was part of a personal development thing that they'd been doing. And they said, "Oh yeah, we did this crazy thing. We did this firewalk." And it was one of those things that had been on my bucket list. And I thought, yeah, I'd like to do that. But I'd never done anything about it. I hadn't taken any action to make it happen. It was just there. And so we had a friend who was doing a lot of fundraising for servicemen and women returning back to civilian life here in the UK. And there's a charity here in the UK, Help for Heroes, which helps them to transition and support them. And she did a lot of fundraising for them. She'd done quizzes and, disco nights and, all sorts of stuff. And we said, "Look, let us organise a firewalk for you. We'll get someone in to run it, and we'll get people involved, and everybody can raise sponsorship." And she was like, "Yeah, sure. It sounds like fun." So that's what we did. And we bullied and coerced and chided, several of our friends, blindsided them. And eventually we got a group of about 25 to 30 people involved. And we brought this guy over from the other side of the country. He became highly recommended. And he gave us an event that blew us away, because this was the lesson that I learned that night and that I still share to this day, which is firewalking is not about walking on fire. It's about all the challenges that we face in life and how it's just a metaphor, a representation of these challenges we face in life and how fear shows up for us in those moments. And it's how you then show up in those moments that determines the outcome of your life, I suppose. And, when I first went to my wife and said, I want to walk away from all that security and comfort and knowledge and prophetic wisdom and step into the unknown, that was kind of what I was doing. I was stepping up and acknowledging that fear, but not letting it control me.
Yes,
And
I think I'm sorry, but I think that's what I know that I have jumped several times in my life. I pivot constantly. And I think it only happens because of my own personal growth. I adjust because my growth is expanding and I have to take that next step and step off the cliff. The cliffs can get smaller. They don't have to be really high, but fear is present. People need to know that the possibility of fear is present constantly, and it's how they deal with it. And I think that you're talking about your story now, which I think is going to be very significant to our listeners, as well as going into the firewalking field. And as you say, walking on fire is a metaphor for what? Fear?
It's a metaphor for the challenge we face in life. And it's how, as you approach, when you approach the fire, and I suppose this is how you should approach all big challenges in life that cause fear to come up for you. It's what's the worst that could possibly happen? Look at the worst possible scenario. So, if we're talking about firewalking, what's the worst that could happen? So you could walk across and you could get a few little blisters, little fire kisses, we call them in the trade, little blisters on the soles of your feet. If you maybe pick up a coal and you carry it to the end of the bed with you and you stomp your feet at the end and somebody sprays your feet and, the coal comes off and you're maybe left with a little blister. Now, if that's the worst that could happen and you're prepared to accept that risk and go, well, if that's the worst that could happen, But the other side of that is I could walk across 15 foot of glowing red embers in excess of 1,000 degrees, and I could step off the end and I could feel like I've never felt in my life. I could feel like I could do anything. And that when fear shows up for me from this moment on, I recognize it. And if I'm okay with that small risk, then I'll take that risk.
Yeah,
so it's kind of,
I'm sensing that, because the fear that of walking on the fire and then getting off with one or two blisters or even more, you're not dead.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously,
Absolutely.
it just did not kill you.
No.
And anything else that you may face or choose to face or want to face, with your help, with Barry Collins' help at firewalk.co.uk, you can achieve it.
Yeah. And the thing is this, that most people aren't afraid of what they think they're afraid of. They're afraid of what they think. Because, the fire from a very early age, most people are told, stay away from the fire will burn you, the fire will hurt you. And yet we use it as the opportunity to give someone such an indelible experience that once they've done that, there's no going back to who they were and what they believed before. So I got into this in 2015, and we had this event, and I thought, I need to do more of this. So I went and I trained as an instructor, so I could add this. What I thought I was going to do was add this to my tool belt as an add-on to all the stuff I was already doing. And the reality is now that I've stepped away from the therapy side, and I'm now fully immersed into the firewalking and the empowerment side of this, because it's such a powerful way to reach so many people and touch so many lives in such a powerful way. So to do that, though, it's not just me. These are not my teachings, and I'm always very transparent and very honest about honouring my teachers. So the man who trained me is a man called Steve Consalvis, and he was in the UK the foremost firewalking instructor at the time. And so I went and I trained with him. But then this habit of mine of getting to the source came up, and so to become a master certifying firewalking instructor, I went to the source. Now, most people have probably heard of Anthony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within, Unleash the Power Within is his big seminar. And, he'll take 10,000 people over the coals on day 2 of a five-day seminar. And he delivers this all over the world. And I thought, well, where did he learn? And when I spoke to Steve, the guy who had trained me, who is now my business partner, the one name that came up was a man called Tolly Burkan. Tollyburkan, Tolly Burkan. And his story, very briefly, was that he started doing this in the 70s. He started doing firewalks. He didn't have an instructor. He just made it up. And he became so popular, he was in demand with people like Microsoft, Remax, American Express, big companies. And he couldn't keep up with the demand, so he began training instructors. And Tony Robbins was one of these instructors. People like T. Harv Eker, Andy Harrington, Edwin Gaines. These people have all trained with Tolly Burkan. And so in 2016, I went and I trained with Tolly, and I'm now part of Tolly's mastery training team. So I'm actually coming over to California in December of this year, 2020, as part of the mastery training, where we take other people through that journey. And it's building a knowledge, a wisdom, an understanding that allows you to take Tolly's teachings. As I say, I'm very, upfront. These are not my teachings, and sharing them with the world and touching as many lives as I can. I see that as my mission. And to let people know that when fear shows up for you, look at what the actual risk is. What could possibly go wrong here? What's the worst case scenario? And if you're okay with that, sometimes making that leap can really be life-changing.
For those listeners, I want you to make sure that you get this website address down, especially if you are just listening on your whatever device and not on my website to see this in print. But go to firewalk.co.uk And Barry is also on Facebook at Firewalking UK and Twitter at Firewalking_UK and other things that will be on my website page. But I think that this is, Barry has presented his information in a clear and thoughtful manner. And if you want to learn, or if you are involved with a company that you think the company should present this to their employees, that's something that you can deal with as you go to firewalk.uk.co.uk and talk to Barry Collins about. If you could give, Barry, if you could give one tip, one strategy to our listeners right now that they could do right now about fear, to overcome their fear, or to make friends with their fear, or to make the fear go away somehow, what would you tell them to do?
Very simply, first of all, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is being able to take action even in the presence of fear. So I would never want to get rid of fear. But my advice would be, and this is Tolly's teaching again, that your challenges are your gifts. And so those challenges that bring up fear for you, that scare you, that make you doubt and uncertain, then look for the gift in them. What is the real gift? What's the learning that is going to help you to grow and become more by taking up that challenge?
Thank you, Barry Collins. I want to thank you very much for being here today. And I want to tell my listeners again, please re-listen to this podcast, take notes, and pass it on to whoever you think will benefit from it. Share it with your friends, share it with your employers, share it with your coworkers, wherever you think it might be. And if you go, oh no, I can't give it to them, that's the person who needs it. I want to thank Barry Collins for being here in the evening in the UK. And that's all, folks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.